What's going on, my creative collective? I don't know what this was about, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay. So, Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives for September 28th, please? The day of Wednesday. That's right. I said what I said. Okay. With love. That's the first one that we'll read if it doesn't hit me in the face first. Okay. And you are love. I like that. Okay, so I'll read that at the end. Okay. That face was me trying to not disrupt this, like, it's almost like there are wires happening here because, like, this doesn't just happen. And so touching one will make the whole camera go this way. So it was delicate, hence the face. Okay, Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives for September 28th, please? September 28th. The sun is part of this call to action. Interesting. I want to say, like, moving towards your happiness, but I feel like there's something more here. The tower is part of the refusal. It's so what I'm hearing now is like all the things that will change because you reach for your happiness and prioritize that. Yeah, little baby steps that you start taking towards it. It's like the refusal is like this fear of a tower moment I'm getting, or there is a literal tower because you're prioritizing what is most important to you, what makes you shine and radiate, your light that's moving outwards. And it's like all the things that you're doing to concretize that feeling, and it's like this radiance, right? It's this radiance where it's like it's just joy. It's straight up joy, and it's all the things that change as a result of that, because things do shift when you start to prioritize different things. They change, right? Like those are big things that shift for you, and it's not shift as in like, I had this epiphany. It's like the literal makeup of your life shifts when you prioritize your happiness, because when that happens, codependence cannot live there anymore. Number one. And number two, it's also that you do different things. Like what's important to you changes, right? It shifts. And it's like you hang out in different places. You find comfort with different people. What you want to do in your downtime shifts. The food that you eat changes, right? It changes because you're changing and you're prioritizing something different. So what can become a tower if it goes unchecked, Spirit? Can you help clarify this energy? So 2 cards came out. I heard so the King of Wands and the Strength card. And you're like, I had like this like happiness Hulk, like you Hulk out and you don't know your own strength. So it's like possibly like you're manifesting powers. You're like the happiness Hulk. I don't know. But yeah, it's like this King of Wands and the Strength card. Big time. And it could also be prioritizing so much that it's like it gets to a point where you're bulldozing a little bit, like it's so much about you that it doesn't allow other things to come in, right? And that's where I see the Strength card in reverse, and it's almost like it's not the Strength card in reverse here, but there's like a hint of it as in the reverse, intuitively speaking, where it's like and this is also a defense mechanism. We can sometimes do this after toxic relationships in particular, where we over prioritize ourselves to the detriment of others around us, because it's like coming up for air, right? Like you're coming up for air and you're like, so you're gasping for air. But what that can sometimes translate into for those around us who have been regulated the whole time are dysregulation and trying to come back into balance can register as it's all about you. And that is where you need to go and reach out to professionals and get help if it starts to tip into that. And that's a valid tower, right? That's a valid tower because it's also having the awareness to ask how much space you're taking up, not as in shrink yourself, but if you're going through a time or period of expansion that's bringing a lot of change, it's always a good idea to ask about the boundaries of other people that you come into contact with, not all the time, and not as an apology thing, because codependence doesn't live there, right? So the idea here is to say, hey, do you have a minute to talk about this? Because it's really important to me. And I know that I might go off and all of this, but I just need some concentrated time, and I don't want to take up your time or assume that you have it to give. That's like being kind and mindful of the way that you're taking up space. And I think that's what this is here, so that it's like your fire is not... your fire is standing firm in its power, but it's also there's like this more merciful disposition for others and yourself. The reason why it could become a tower is this can also be isolating. This can be an energy that can isolate you as much as you might want to connect with other people, because it's not just about being the most powerful person in the room. And I've said this before, like doing activism, I've encountered politicians, I've encountered a number of different people, and power doesn't scare me. What makes me nervous is when people who have power do not understand the responsibility to serve others with it, that comes with it, and do not understand the capacity that they have with that power to absolutely do harm and to crush other people with their words, with their energy. And that is what makes me nervous about it. And not nervous as in don't feel powerful. It's not like that. I just and that's where but it's like, to me, that's how this could become a tower, is like we suddenly are aware of ourselves, and this can be kind of like an unawareness. So that could be part of the refusal, is the fear of that. And what, it's saying that there's like, it could be a fear of taking up too much space, so you're taking up too little space. And I think it's maybe about finding a balance here, because again, power isn't scary on its own. That's not something to be fearful of, especially when it's empowered, right? The negative manifestation of power is where you take it from others, right? There's that dynamic of power over, power with, right? And there's other ways that that's been expanded by scholars and folks, and theorists and whatnot. But when you lean more towards power with, you're empowered, and you're empowering others along the way, as opposed to it being so centralized around you. Other people are allowed to have their power too, and to stand in it, and it's not a threat because you're all empowered. So it's like it's empowerment, but that's how it's really coming across. This is so strong. It's so strong, right? And also to not feel like I almost get the impression like this is the strength card in the Leo, right? And then this is a little bit of that Leo energy in the background. And it's like, are you commanding the lion within you? Are you taming that? Are you working with that? Or is it chasing you down? Like, is it following you? Is it hunting you? Like that kind of idea where it's like, how are you integrating that power and making it work for you, as opposed to, feeling like you're constantly on the run from it. So, interesting. That came out like all at once. Okay, hold on. Come on, spirits. These cards are all sticking together. What's the protagonist energy? Interesting. I feel like this is like underestimating your own strength. This is also coming across as like humility, but humility in terms of underestimating your strength. But that's not, it's like humility is really it, because we have the magician in your full power manifesting, and the Two of Swords is not knowing all the details, and that strikes me as a kind of humility, because it's the path unfolding as you go. So as the path unfolds, so too does your manifesting power, and needing to see the big picture is not the main priority. Needing to understand your empowerment is. And your empowerment is what, like, your misunderstanding of that. This strikes me as a card of disempowerment, because you don't have enough information. You don't have all the details. Thus, you spin your wheels trying to find out all the information, but it's not going to come from that source, right? It's not going to come from the externals. The blindfold is on here because there's something you can't see externally that can only come from within you. And that's where this magician card is coming into play. And I feel like this is a big message about balance, right? Like coming into balance. coming into balance. It's like keeping the faith. Keeping the faith. But that's what happens when you're in balance. I mean, not to paint in broad strokes, but that is often a sort of symptom of being in balance. Eight of Pentacles, antagonist. It's almost like what you choose to ignore is also what you inadvertently invest in. What you choose to ignore is what you inadvertently invest in. Definitely some channeled message there. But that's where it's like working so hard that you're at the point of ignoring as opposed to savoring and enjoying, right? And that's where it's like you're when you manifest from that place, that's what arrives. That same thing arrives. So again, it's like understanding your power and the relationship between your power, right? Your raw creative power internally and the manifestation of things in the Magician. So the Strength card and the King of Wands and the Magician and the Two of Swords. It's interesting that both are fire elements for the Strength card and the King of Wands, and then the Magician and the Two of Swords, right? They're elementally related, which tells me that maybe there's a way that it's like, you've been hesitant about your fire or fire energy, passion, creativity, fun. I mean, other suits and suits of the tarot are fun, but I think about like that Leo energy, that playfulness, that curiosity, that frivolity, lightheartedness, right? And I think about the swords as coming through of, knowing all the details, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. But then the Magician here is coming through as believing that you need to be in all the details for the manifestation to work. So it's like there's a way that your fire and your air, like your creative passion and that part of you that just like, right, like let's do this. Like you're so excited you can't help it. They've been at odds. Your perception of what you're manifesting and the fire that you put behind it have been at odds. And it's to your detriment to ignore that tension, because maybe that tension is where something amazing is going to be birthed. Maybe that tension is where something amazing is going to be birthed. Yeah. This isn't the birth of the thing that will be birthed, but this tells me about the tension. Like that's the overcoming, right? The challenge that you're overcoming is that tension. It's like being pulled in so many different directions that it kind of breaks your own heart. Not because the manifestation isn't coming, but because you don't trust the raw elements that you have within you with which you're making that thing, with which you're creating the reality. So your heart has no choice but it expands, but painfully. Like it doesn't need to expand that way. What's the overcoming spirit? How do we overcome this tension? Seven of Wands. This is coming across as discernment, being very discerning of the wand energy, the creative spark, the power, the passion, the creativity, the depth of creative knowing, your gut instinct, being discerning about what it is that you let fire you up, because there's so many things here that are like, yeah, let's do this. But there's one or two that need to get a little bit closer, but you can only know. This is like a depth of knowing, right? This is your gut instinct. You can know. That's something that only you can discern. And that's where you have to befriend both the fire and the air. Like I'm a sign that's mostly air and fire. Like where my air sits in my birth chart is in a firehouse. And if I have a fire in my big four, it's in an air house. So it's like quite interesting, except for my 10th, except for my moon, which is Aquarius, but it's in Capricorn. So 10th house. Nonetheless, but this energy is very much needing to discern where it is that you in place and how it's like how you perceive of the fire. Because it's not something that's to be feared or afraid of, right? You can't fear that, because when it comes to making stuff, you have to tap into it. Otherwise, there's this lethargy and malaise that sets in, so you can't. It's like you immobilize yourself because you're not thinking clearly enough about what your fire means and the meaning that you make of that, right? When's the last time you got so excited? And thinking about times where you were super enthusiastic about something, somebody might have cut you down for it or been, like, it's I think about the meme that I've shared before on here, where my friend had sent me this, and it was like, if I'm too much, go find less, right? Like that idea. But it's like, if you fear your fire, you will find less situations that are less than you deserve, situations that are less, that will shrink you, that will make you play small, just very small and like very tightly so, where you're just like, oh, okay, like you can't really breathe, but it's okay because you can still perceive, right? There's going to come a time where the fire is so much louder, and you need to work with that. You need to work with that. What you're awakening to, I mean, it's a different kind of fire, but it's Gemini actually. So, but still, yeah. And I feel like you're awakening to that, and it could be happening through relationship. It could be happening through the templates that you've given yourself and the programming that you've adopted related to relationships, subconscious beliefs, where you've tempered the fire and you've been like, well, I'll only ask for X, Y, and Z thing. I'll just, and you put qualifiers on your good. So you're trying to like negotiate with spirit and say, well, I won't ask for this big thing, but I'll ask for this little thing because the little thing feels much safer and I can at least perceive of how that will happen. The other thing I'm kind of afraid is going to bring everything crashing to the ground because I can't really conceive of how my life can be a container for that much good yet. Don't worry about the container changing. Don't feel like you need the container to change all at once. It doesn't have to. It's the one step at a time thing, right? One foot in front of the other, one manifestation after the other, right? It would be deeply uncomfortable for some people if they, wow, okay. I split the deck, and this is what was waiting for us. So, I feel like there are so many, this all feels like it's connected here. The Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Cups. These are new opportunities to invest. And what I love about this is that it takes the creative fire, right? The fire of creation, that raw material, and it turns it into something else. But this is so fascinating to me, where the things that you're doubting is the container for your fire, and the way that your suit of swords, as it were, the air alights the fire. And your container, it's like you are going to be getting invitations to understanding, not just the container expanding in terms of the Ace of Cups, but then also the way that you can ground these things in something deeply rooted in your life. Those are the choices that you're awakening to right now. How do you allow your creativity to flourish with you? Do you resist that? Do you resist the creativity so that you push it away from yourself so that you don't need it? Or you talk yourself out of it? Oh, it's not that important. Oh, or you find things wrong with that thing. So you make someone or something wrong inherently before they ever have a chance to show you that they are, amazing, or all of these different things that would fit really well. So it's like you talk yourself out of that and push it away because you're fearful of the container not being there. But I feel like this is not, I want to say this is something more permanent, but it's coming from within you. Nonetheless, these are still opportunities that will present you with choices. You're awakening to the choices and the ways that you've been choosing to relate to and approach your happiness. And also, I think that changes what your happiness means. Like, what are you allowing happiness and joy and light to mean for you? Like, yeah, and the big lesson here is like making meaning from what it was or has been that has emotionally fulfilled you. What is it? How you've let your emotions flow. It's like understanding that container, the Queen of Cups that's coming across, especially with the Ace of Cups, as like the container for the energy from your heart, the way that you bring together perception, thoughts, beliefs, and your fire into a cup. Like how those, it's almost like it's coming across as like these two base materials that come together through choices that you make, right? The Lover's card into this very beautifully grounded, loving energy in the Ace of Cups. And I think that you're becoming aware, perhaps too, of the illusions that you had about what love meant, and what love meant, not necessarily just romantically, like what it meant to fall in love with what you do, to fall in love with life, to let life love you back, right? To let your passion meet you in different projects you might work on or jobs that you might have. How is your passion speaking back to you through your experiences? And have you limited your good by I almost want to say, like, it's like falling prey. What's coming to mind is, again, this card where it's like your illusions are hunting you down to really confront you. They're here to confront you, to say, like, is this what you want to believe in? Because this is a perfect time. It's a Mercury retrograde. It's a great time to reflect and to look back at that, and where we're in and out of balance, specifically because it's in Libra, like Hanged Man, right? That's the big theme. I feel like that's like the big idea here is like, what no longer works, and what illusions are you no longer willing to put up with, no matter how much they might have comforted you at one point, right? Because there's an invitation to a greater depth of your emotion with the Queen of Cups. Okay, Spirit, can you clarify this? Can you clarify this energy for me, please, for the 28th? Page of Swords. You might, like, the way that you understand this about yourself and the ways that you're shifting may come on like very innocent news that you get, or a message where somebody might reach out and say, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to work on this? Or someone might say something quite innocently, and you then realize something deeper. I feel like this is sort of like the messenger where this becomes quite clear, not just what energy is waking up within you, but also then too, the big themes of what illusions you're giving greater weight than your emotions. That was definitely channeled. Interesting. And then we have clarifying the Sun, the Three of Swords, and the Seven of Wands. We have the Eight of Pentacles. I feel like there's something to this that it's been something like a long time going, a long time coming. This is not something that's new to you. I think this has kind of been a struggle. And I say struggle because it's like you're wrestling. I cannot make this up. I thought about the Strength card and the traditional Rider-Waite and the wrestling, and that's the card that came flying out, where it's like you've been in this power struggle for a really long time. You've been in a power struggle for a really long time, and that's what this Tower is here. That's the fear, is like losing the power struggle. But what if the power struggle that you've had between letting your fire free and meeting your perception, right? Like, to use an example, what happens if you fall in love? What, like, some people are like, that would be amazing. But for some people, it would be terrifying because so many things would change, and terrifying to the extent that they haven't properly integrated this, where it becomes a power struggle, right? And it's like the healing that needs to come from that, where it's like if you fall in love, you are committing to it being emotionally responsible to yourself, yes, but then also meeting someone else's needs in a relationship and prioritizing them too. So it's like there's so much that goes with that, especially if if you start dating and it's like it takes a long-term direction. But it's like, what commitment? There's the Hierophant is not here necessarily. The King of Cups is, though. The King of Cups is here, but it's not necessarily like a commitment energy showing up here. But when your fire meets something substantive, and the Ace of Pentacles tells me that there's the potential for it to become substantive. So this could be related to a committed relationship or a career you're going to freaking love, like with every fiber of your being, as in feet hit the floor and you cannot wait to start your day, right? That kind of energy. And what happens is the power struggle comes where we create stories to keep our good at bay, right? So what would happen if you did not have those stories about your, minuscule nature, right? To decrease yourself or invisibilize yourself or erase your desires. What would happen if those stories didn't exist and you did not have them in a repertoire from which to draw upon to justify your magnitude, to justify playing small, to say, well, this happened before and I'm not really looking for that. And I don't know. Do you really not know? Or is it that it's too uncomfortable to conceive of getting outside of a comfort zone that's facilitated the disconnects between your fire and creative passion and the ways that you're perceiving and intellectualizing, perhaps, or receiving, intellectually, making sense, comprehending, making meaning of things? You don't have to do it all at once. Page of Wands is a reminder that it can happen one step at a time, and that indeed you will not have all the answers right away, right? So it's about manifesting in a baby step capacity. And the King of Cups and the Eight of Cups came out. And this is really about recognizing where your emotional energy is going, right? And also how frustrating this can be, like, to feel the manifestation, to become, so wrapped up in manifesting well, to do all the things and to still see no results. It's almost like when you don't trust in the baby steps, you won't take the baby steps because you're looking for the leaps to take. So you hold back. And instead of holding back, the message here is to dive deeper, more deeply in, right? To dive more deeply in. Don't be afraid of making the emotional investment that sends you on that journey to becoming integrated in terms of your fire and your fire and your air, grounding it as well. But this is an emotional invitation to a greater sense of fulfillment, right? It's that emotional invitation. Can you clarify the Eight of Pentacles, please, Spirit? Yeah, Nine of Swords. And that's where it's like what you ignore persists. People say what you focus on persists, which is true. Like what you focus on in terms of like when you spin, when you ruminate, it doesn't go away. But this is also perhaps some fears and concerns that where the Eight of Pentacles is you investing in something heavily, it's also investing heavily and maybe bypassing through being absorbed in something else. So it's like, let yourself feel the feels. Like, don't run from the worry, because perhaps the worry isn't going to generate what you think it will. Like, it's going to help you become the King of Wands, because the King of Wands is not an energy. It's like a know thyself energy, right? It's a know thy fire energy. Know thy fire. That's a title and a half. But it's like a know thy fire energy. So, but you have to let yourself kind of be caught in these thoughts. Like, don't let them run away. This isn't about worrying to the detriment of your health or well-being or anything like that. But this is an energy of taking a step back for a second and seeing the worry for what it is through the eyes of the King of Wands. If you were in the energy that you wanted to be, what would you think of the worry? What would become of the worry, right? What would become of that? Act as if. Sometimes you have to pretend. You have to like fake it till you make it, right? I have a photo in my room that is of Tina Fey, and it was by Heather Buchanan, and it's out of print now, but and I'm so grateful I got it. But it says Tina Fake It, so Fey, F-E-Y, and then apostrophe K, until you make it. And so it's like, it's that energy of like, fake it till you make it, right? And not as in like deceive yourself, but it's knowing your fire, and it's understanding that it can stretch and encompass so much without engulfing. And that's the King of Wands energy. But there is some worry with it, perhaps, is what I'm getting. Let me clarify it with one more card here. Spirit, how can we move forward? Knowing our fire. Know thy fire. Just a little bit of extra wisdom. 2 cards came flying out here. 2 of Swords. Oh, good. Going within is really the only way through. That's how it's like, this is the way that things are going to feel right for you. And how do I word this, Spirit? It's like, know thy fire is to know thyself. And when you know yourself, I'm hearing to thine own self be true. this really is like this is like to thine own self be true. Maybe you've been taking in information. What is it that is at the core of this worry? Is it beliefs that you're not good enough? Is it beliefs that you're going to mess it up? Is it beliefs that you hold that are making you fearful of holding this fire and taming it and stoking it? Like, what is that? I know, like, my fire sign friends would be like, this is not my message, because a lot of the fire friends I have are very good at holding their fire, right? And directing it. And that's where it's like the maturation of fire energy can take on different forms as we grow. And also different transits and things like that. I think there was like a Chiron, when I came out as trans, there was like a Chiron retrograde in Aries or something like that. And my Chiron is in the first house. It's like, whoa, like there's something like that where I was like, whoa, that's like a recipe for, because the Aries and I mean, anyways, but it could be transits like that. That's like impacting how you're handling it. But worries are always sourced. If you go back to the source of the worry, it's a belief that's not true, that you're trying to justify the existence of with a reality that doesn't match, because the reality is better than what your belief is. So you have to worry because you're going to fear losing the good that's showing up. So it's almost like you have to acclimate to the new norm or a new reality. And that's where the King of Wands energy is like, know thy fire. Whatever comes, you'll handle it. Whatever happens, you'll be able to take care of it, right? Knowing yourself in that way. It's very Emperor energy, even though it's a King of Wands, but still. And if I might add, a nice 9 of Pentacles as well. Just putting it out there. Okay. So let's do an affirmation now. Know thy fire. I would say know thy fire and fear not thy fire. It's really important. I am worthy of my own love. Write a love note to yourself. What is it that you most need or want to hear? Some homework, I guess. Write a love note to yourself. Love that. Okay. So let's read this last one here. You are love. Dearest you, even though life seems now to be moving full steam ahead, it's a time to rest. Allow ideas to flow through you and take root in your heart before they reach your mind. Wow, that's the fire in mind, fire in the air. Honor this process of becoming empty to allow for inspiration and the magic of dreaming. Magician. Oh boy. You might feel lazy or unproductive, but we know better. Just as sleep is a way to recharge before renewal, so are you in a time for dreaming. In this powerful process of co-creation, your soul merges with spirit in a profound way so you can receive your music directly from source and play your part in the symphony of life. You're being invited to bear witness to the great creation and tune in to what others can't hear. We have so many dreams to share with you in the sacred and the invisible. Don't worry, we'll wake you when it's time to return with a new dream. No need to set an alarm clock. Loving you always. And isn't that just the beauty of things? I'm grateful that I haven't had to use an alarm for, I want to say, the better part of 5 years now. I usually just trust my body to wake up when I need to, and it works a lot of the time. But it's like dreaming without an alarm clock. That's like the limits that we set on our dreams, right? It's the limits that we set on our capacity to make new. So dream without an alarm clock. Just see what happens. See what happens. Whatever that means for you. Okay, so this is your reading for September 28th. If this resonated, give it a like and subscribe. I'd love to have you on the channel if you're not here already. If you are joining me from my subscriber base, thank you. I really appreciate you. So thank you for being here. Seriously, thank you. And as always, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope it finds you very well. Take care, everyone. Bye.